Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff Rains coming to you again with Foundation of Civilization. And today I want to emphasize the foundation of civilizations, the principles and the ideas that have come together. In particular, I want to talk about the independence, since today is the Independence Day, the day that the United States recognizes its independence from the United Kingdom. And I guess at the time the Empire of Great Britain, which is interesting because I think I read somewhere sometime that like a third of the world has an Independence Day, a day they recognize that their independence from Great Britain, which I think is kind of funny. But today I want to focus, of course, on the United States. And the question I want to ask is, what would the world look like without the United States? Lots of speculation, and there's lots of different ideas. A lot of great things that the United States has done, some bad things that the United States have done. It is undeniable the United States has changed the world. If we roll back the clock and look at the world, a lot of things were different. On one side of the world, Japan was still practicing feudalism. Samurai walking the streets with katanas and wakizashis. In Russia, serfs still worked the land. In the Mediterranean, in particular North Africa through the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire maintained an Islamic empire. That would last until around World War I. Along the North African coast, Barbary pirates raided any nation's ship backed by letters of marque from the Ottoman Empire. They were privateers. Of course, one country's privateer is another person's pirate, so another country's pirate. In general, the world was very agrarian, with just a little bit of industry being developed. Most people worked on farms or something related to farms and farming. Transportation was conducted by wagon. Some transportation continued on to the docks and to international shipping. More specifically navigation, had advanced to allow ships to sail from one side of the ocean to the other without having to maintain sight of land. That was a huge advancement that, it's kind of started with the Vikings, then went all the way through the Portuguese and the Dutch, and just through the age of exploration. Communication was still being conducted by writing letters, or maybe by verbal direction, passing a message word of mouth, or mouth to ear. And housing was still being provided by wood, stone, some cement. Roofs were wood, tile, or thatch. Education, primarily provided by local schoolhouses, where most students were all taught together, and no matter what their age is, and all in the same classroom. There were just a few universities for advanced education. I mentioned industry just briefly, but it was just getting a footing in the world, with some manufacturers diverting rivers to produce power. And this was coming to them at scale. Previous to this, of course, people had worked with water wheels, but they had been able to turn like a grinding stone, so you could grind meal, grind grains into flour. War was conducted by infantry with firearms, muzzle-loading firearms, also muzzle-loading cannons. Wooden ships carried the cannons, and they also conducted a lot of trade across the oceans. The average individual would meet their spouses in a church, or maybe in a bar. The taverns, I guess, that would probably be a better term. Medicine still being conducted using leeches. Under these conditions, a group of men gathered and wrote the Constitution, giving us unprecedented freedom and power. It altered the world, and I will explain that more very shortly. I'm going to address first the things outside of the constitutions, the technical things that we've been able to get as a result of the Constitution, I'm going to save the principles from the Constitution for last. Instead, I want to point out how the world has changed as a direct result of things learned in or from the United States. As a matter of fact, the United States has provided the majority of changes in the world, how the world conducts itself. What kinds of things am I talking about? Starting with communication. First, the United States developed wired communication through the telegraph. Later, the U.S. provided the world telephones. Today, anyone can pick up a phone and contact someone on the other side of the world, as opposed to having someone transport a message to a receiver, having to write a letter, or having to whisper something in their ear. Industrialization actually started long ago, before the modern nation. It did, however, get some huge boosts from the United Kingdom and then the United States. Manufacturing facilities were built, like I mentioned, harnessing water power, then coal-fired engines, and eventually petroleum. Petroleum wells were discovered in Pennsylvania, and petroleum began to replace whale oil for industrial use. And the massive expansion of power generation it hasn't slowed down since. Well, maybe it has just started to slow down some. I think that's mostly because of demographics. Although it seems so, the USA did not build the first internal combustion engines and automobiles. That distinction goes to French-born Swiss inventor Francois Isaac de Rivaz. I hope I'm not butchering his name too badly. However, the explosion of personal transportation through the automobile did occur as a result of U.S. industrial might implemented by Henry Ford. Henry Ford had worked with the slaughterhouses in Chicago where beef was processed one at a time. He witnessed their processing and decided that cars could be built in much the same way. Each cutter had a different job, and they did their job very well and efficiently. That idea is spread across the world for a multitude of things. Harnessing the power of electricity has revolutionized everything we do. Of course, as I mentioned, petroleum as fossil-based fuels have made a huge contribution in allowing us to produce electricity. But cities today, I mean, could you imagine if you did a satellite photo from 1780 or 1800 and compared it to today? You've seen some of the satellite photos, have you not? You want to see something really interesting? Look at South Korea compared to North Korea. The electricity powers the machines of our lives: washing machines, dryers, blenders, refrigerators, and one of my favorites, power tools. Another huge change to the world came with aircraft. Again, there were many people who had a good idea about aircraft, and they were able to harness the Bernoulli principle to develop a lifting wing, but none were able to get it to do anything other than fly in a straight line. The Wright brothers were able to put control surfaces on the aircraft and get it to turn left and right and return to its starting point. Since then, every major world power has developed an aircraft program. Aircraft allow us to travel from one side of the world to the other very rapidly. I was able to make it to Central Asia from Germany in just a few hours. I was also able to fly to Peru from Florida in less than 6 hours. Well, in about 6 hours. And you fly from the east coast of the United States to England in about 6 hours. It's huge. Huge changes. Another huge change in the world has been television. Human beings gather 80% of their information through sight. It opened a whole new world when television provided visual data along with the auditory information. We were able to see what is happening. We're able to witness something that was key, especially in the Vietnam War, to let people know just how horrible war is. They're able to see it every night. And then again in the 1990s with the Gulf War. Now, one of my favorite changes to the world, air conditioning. It's transformed southern climes from saunas into habitable locations. My home state of Florida would not have half the population it does if not for air conditioning. Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Computers have completely changed the way we conduct our lives. They've changed our means of communication, transportation, entertainment, and governance, and also banking. They allow us to control machines to a level never dreamed of before. They can drive vehicles, fly aircraft, they can control the temperature of homes across the world. Now, I said I wanted to save the first two things that we got for the last, because I think that they're most important. They are the things that are outlined in the Constitution. And coming in second is representative government. When the Constitution was written, it promoted the idea that power to govern came from the people, not from the government. Government just ends up using threats of violence to enforce their rule. As such, the government, since the government represents the people and the power comes from the people, it should be chosen by the people and represent their thoughts and ideas. This changed a lot of countries, and now nearly every country tries to emulate the United States in this principle, although some have much better success than others. The last thing I want to cover, and I just find this actually pretty amusing, that is what's covered in the Bill of Rights, and it's the idea that gives us the Bill of Rights, and that's that each human being has rights, or at least the idea of human rights. We have a ton of arguments as to what is a right, what is not, but nearly everyone agrees that individuals have rights. The right to life, the right to direct that life, the right to be secure in your property and in your communications, the right to travel where you wish without having to answer to anybody, the right to assemble to meet with whoever you wish without having to answer to anyone. Before 1787, when the Constitution was written and ratified, how many governments had documented the rights of individuals? The answer is 0. None had enumerated those rights. The Bill of Rights flipped this idea on its head. It presented the principle that everyone had rights given by God, or by nature if you like, that individuals are not dependent on the government for those rights. The government is supposed to represent the people and supposed to protect those rights. Today, nearly every country has documented in some way rights of the individuals. They recognize or respect it, even if they don't call it a Bill of Rights or they don't have it all enumerated. They recognize that the individuals, that each of us have rights. Where did it all start? Right in the United States of America. So when you get up, and especially if you are very vocal about your rights, remember where they came from. Remember who stated that you had rights in the first place. It is the United States of America. And despite the problems that have arisen and that we have created, like I said, the world would not be the same without the United States of America. I hope that you guys are enjoying your Independence Day, or the United States Independence Day, and I hope that you guys are recognizing your rights and that you have rights. And I hope that you will, even if you don't like the United States, I hope that you will recognize the importance that the United States has played over the years. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. If you have found this enlightening or useful in any way, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any complaints about it, please make a comment below. Much love to everybody, and I hope that you guys are doing well and you're paying attention to what is coming and what is going in the world, and hope that y'all are preparing for the changes that are occurring. Thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you all very soon.